everybody, and welcome to part 3 of World my World War One videos. Sorry, foot cramp. I'm sorry if you might hear some rustling of papers, because there are a couple things that are not included in these PowerPoints. But that's just how he planned to teach it. Mr. Kistler planned to teach it with videos, PowerPoints, and activities. He did give us quite a broad way of studying. So, the July Crisis. The July Crisis refers to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and then the essential pre-war declarations of war and mobilization of forces that pretty much are the start of World War One. So, on June 28th, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated in Sarajevo on pretty much a little bit of a diplomatic and political errand. And on the same day, the Emperor declares war on Serbia. And on the 31st, an ally of Serbia, Russia, makes an order to mobilize its forces. That, the very next day, then causes Germany to mobilize its armed forces to France and declare war on Russia. 2 days later, Germany then declares war on France. And the day after that, German forces then invade Belgium en route to France. This causes Britain to declare war on Germany for crossing into Belgium, because they had a treaty saying neither of us will invade Belgium. It'll be neutral. And Germany technically didn't want to invade Belgium. They essentially, when they got to the border, they said, this is not exactly how it went down, but they said, okay, we just want to pass through your country. Pretty much our entire army is just going to pass straight through your country. We're not going to take you over. We're just using you as pretty much a stepping stone, a walkway to France. So if you would please just lower your guard and just let us pass through, which, when you think about it, does sound kind of crazy. So it makes sense that Belgium then says no, and then starts trying to defend. And 2 days later, Austria-Hungary declares war on Russia as well. During this time, Germany actually did have a lot harder time with Belgium than you would think. But again, due to the Schlieffen Plan, they had to pass through Belgium, or else they would have to pass through the Netherlands, which would have been even longer. And the Schlieffen Plan was designed by Count Alfred von Schlieffen, and was then slightly changed by Field Officer Marshal Heltham von Moltke. Sorry if I'm butchering these names. It was the basis of the entire German plan for the war. Because, well, we gotta take out France before we can take out Russia. And the main things that the Schlieffen Plan required was the rapid mobilization, concentration, and supplying of German forces, and a small army that would be sent to secure strong points for the Russians. You know, basically somebody who would set a couple small groups that was basically set up for when the Russians get there. And an invasion of France going through Belgium, and they would due to the 42-day plan, on the 39th day they would have to capture France, and the 42nd they would have to make sure the French surrender by the 42nd day. Because if they surrender on the 43rd day, that was pretty much, oh no, we're gonna lose. Germany and the German army would then have to rapidly move. Okay, we captured you. We're going to fight the Russians, which would require a major military might, and it would be amazing to get them all the way to the other end of the country just to get there. And Schlieffen's last words were, "Remember to keep the right flank strong," which didn't happen. Yeah, you're supposed to listen to a man's dying words. And as you can see with this chart, the Schlieffen Plan, this was what was supposed to happen. The right flank here was supposed to stay strong, not break up. And basically, there would be a couple of German forces here to like lure in the French to move this way. Then the Germans would a large amount of Germans would loop around, basically sandwiching the French forces, essentially destroying them. And along the way, some small bits of forces would capture other places to secure other areas. And Plan 17, which was France's obsession with naming its plans after numbers. And as you can see, those are some French uniforms. Yeah, this was right after the Napoleonic era, so they still saw war as this glorious thing that you should wear these bright and beautiful uniforms. It was the plan was to get Alsace-Lorraine, which was a place that they had lost during the Franco-Prussian War, back. The French army would have to hold its forces on the left wing and place a lot of strength on the right wing. The French army, they were pretty much like, "We're marching after war," and they would be singing a lot of, and they would be all jazz. "We're going off to war. We're going to destroy the Germans, get Alsace-Lorraine." Because back then, they didn't truly understand how horrible war was. Because there was all this propaganda saying how glorious it was. They never mentioned the horrors of it. And huge crowds actually, when the French were passing through, started singing La Marseillaise. The French army was commanded by Marshal Joseph Joffre. I'm sorry if I butchered that. His greatest trait was the inability to be panicked. It's like a guy who would stay completely calm during a car crash. Those are my words and nobody else's. While he is perhaps not the greatest military commander, this did make it. Being incapable of being panicked made the troops feel a lot calmer as well. The French troops marching off to war prepared to avenge the losses of Alsace-Lorraine nearly from pretty much 40 years earlier. So, yeah, payback. The Belgian Resistance, yeah, you wouldn't expect Belgium to put up much at first. In order for the Schlieffen Plan to work effectively and properly, they just needed to go through Belgium nice and smoothly. And when they invaded Belgium, because Belgium didn't want to let them just pass through, this made the British say, "Okay, now we're mad. We're sending troops to help the French, even though we've had hundreds of years of war with them." So this led for Britain to send the British Expeditionary Force, or the BEF, to the Western Front to help aid the French. The Germans thought Belgians would either quickly be defeated or say, okay, we surrender, just go through our land. Have some waffles. I'm sorry if that offends any of you. But that was not the case. The tiny Belgian army, led by their king Albert I, refused to just let the Germans pass through there. And ironically, the Belgians had all these little forts with like cannons in them. This stalled the Germans long enough to delay the plan drastically by like 3 days. And 3 days was a big deal to the Germans at that time. As you can see, the Belgium defense system, they had Liège, and then all these little forts. And these little forts were pretty much these system of underground bunkers with movable cannons that would actually go up and fire. It still today looks kind of futuristic. And it would be like motorized and hand cranks for other things. And yeah, they put up quite a fight with that. And it was designed, I believe, 20 years earlier and built to withstand any weapons from 20 years earlier. It would be nearly indestructible 20 years earlier. But it was not 20 years earlier. The Big Bertha, or the Howitzer, was this huge gun. You can see in relations to this guy right here how big it was. The German soldiers, they would have to load the thing up, aim it, then go a couple hundred meters away or yards away, and then put cotton in their ears and open their mouths wide open so their brains wouldn't be turned to liquid because of the sheer shock wave. And the Germans had some pretty heavy cannons and artillery. And to put it in perspective, this is the Napoleonic gun versus the Napoleonic cannon. And Napoleon used these very efficiently. They were 1,200 pounds. The shell weighed 12 pounds because it's a 112-pound cannon. 112-pound cannon, it takes 12-pound ball shots. And its range, fairly effective at 200 yards. The Schlieffen guns. They weighed 300,000 pounds, fired 2,000-pound rounds, and were effective and accurate for about 7 times the distance. Yeah, I'd rather go up against the Napoleonic cannons. The fall of Liège. That was since the forts were only designed to withstand weapons from 20 years earlier, because they were built nearly 20 years earlier. Once the Germans started using the Howitzers and the Crayfishcraig, yeah, they started falling. But at first, those forts held pretty strong. The Belgians, at first, were using those machine guns, just mowing them down. After a while, a mound of bodies started piling up, and they were discussing whether they should move the bodies to get a better line of sight. That is just... yeah. But then, the artillery started coming in, and those little forts started falling one by one. Bomb by bomb. So, I hope you found this video useful, and if you haven't seen the other two, I would highly recommend them, especially if you're in Mr. Kistler's history class, and I hope you will join me for the next video. Until then,